Your health journey is all your own. Hello, lovelies. This is Annette of AnnetteLeonard.com, back again with Chronic Wellness. So I was thinking about the topic for this episode, and a number of factors considered were under my consideration for this topic. And one of them is that I was recently having a conversation about my dear friend Amy, who passed almost exactly 1 year before I got my diagnosis of non-specific interstitial pneumocystitis, better known as pulmonary fibrosis. And Amy died waiting for her lung transplant, and terribly sick and just a frail shadow of herself. And I have mentioned a couple of times here on the podcast that my mom shared a number of the autoimmune diseases that I got riding around in this body here. And I think it's so easy, particularly when we have a hard or unfamiliar diagnosis, whether it is common or rare, to lean on Dr. Google or other people's experiences or what we've sort of heard about an illness, and let those things kind of co-opt our imagination, our thoughts, our knowledge base about our illness. And I think it can have really disastrous effects. In the case of my illness, the Google will tell you that I am likely to have only lived 3 to 5 years with my illness, and that mortality rates are up around 90 or 95%. Well, I was diagnosed 9 years ago. So I think that there would have been a number of paths along this journey that would have led to my demise. And I think part of the reason that I'm still here is a commitment to tuning some of that out and walking my own path. And I think particularly for me, as a reforming people pleaser, as someone who often values others' perspectives above my own, and as someone who highly values information over emotion, it's very easy to get captivated by the stories people have to share, and to feel like I owe it to people to listen to their experiences about their hairdresser's sister and their mom's best friend and their dog walker's cousin-in-law and whoever else in their life may have come down with something like what we have, and how that journey has gone for them and what worked for them, and whether or not they tried fecal transplants or juicing or raw food or vegan and low dose naltrexone, whether they went Chinese herbalist or all allopathic, or they got sent to the moon. And while they were, you know how it is. People are really willing to volunteer information. And sometimes I think hearing it can contribute to a sense of, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong, instead of onboarding new possibilities. I think it can add to our sense of this is a catastrophe. this is going poorly and I've already messed up what choices I should have made about how this should be going. And having been on this path now for long enough to learn how to embody my experience. I'm going to say that again, to learn how to be embodied in this experience. That is not something I was doing when I came into illness. And so cultivating a practice of doing those body scans multiple times a day, checking in on how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what's going on in my body. I am the best person to be assessing how I'm feeling, whether or not that medication is making a difference in how I'm feeling, what the side effects are of the medication I'm taking, determining whether the side effects are worth the potential benefits. Like, is this a big enough quality of life trade-off that I want to keep taking this medication? And no, it's not fun. That it takes so much effort to be tuning in those ways and to be self-advocating with our physicians and coordinating among our specialists and calling all the insurance companies and backtracking and following up the pharmacy to see if our meds are, and all the details. And yet, it's the only way I know to take charge of my medical circumstances. And when I start thinking, well, her mom had already died of this by now, or she said that by this time next year things got really bad, what happens is I'm kicking off a slew of chemicals that my brain is going to start circulating that are going to either lead to inflammation, lead to anxiety, going to start get me addicted to that kind of heightened sense of what could go wrong, or all of the above, or more pain. And I will be robbed of this present moment. And maybe those circumstances will come to pass, but maybe they won't. And now I've just ruined the present, hypothesizing about what's going to go wrong in the future. And even if that house of cards falls in that same way in the future, I gave up a good day. I gave up the present to worry about that. Look, I don't pretend it's easy. Yes, our health and the idea of suffering is some of the hardest mental stuff to get our head around. And I am not trying to plaster a pretty face over what can be anxiety producing, worrisome, lend toward depression, all kinds of other mental anguish. And there are tools. And whether it starts with a contemplative practice, or with journaling, or with noticing, oh my gosh, I'm worrying about that so much, it's taking up all the real estate in my head. How can I pop that bubble? Or finding a skilled therapist. There are a lot of ways to not let the fear of the future dominate your joy in the present. And your medical journey is your own. It won't be identical to anyone else's. Not even if you have an identical twin. Everyone's journey is their own, based up on actions and choices and decisions that you make, and the ways you are acted upon by others, from minutia to grand things. Some things that will go right and some things that won't. But no amount of today is improved by me getting really fixated on how bad it's going to be down the road. So notice when you start to get captivated, when you start to catastrophize, when you start to borrow trouble. And if you don't already have tools or skills or support around making change in that area, maybe it's time to get some. I love you. I'm thinking about you, and enjoying and getting the most out of the time that you do have does matter. Till we're together again, sound off below about the ways that you are making your medical journey your own. Be well.